I never knew I had the courage to stand up to a millionaire until I changed lives that night. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was supposed to be a glamorous gala, a night filled with glittering lights and expensive laughter. Instead, it was the moment my entire world began to crumble. I stood in my worn-out shoes, heart pounding like a drum. The air was thick with perfume and tension. People whispered, eyes darting sideways, judging, analyzing, as if they could see right through me. His name flashed like an electric spark in my mind, Caleb Mercer. The self-made millionaire whose charm was as intoxicating as a fine wine. He was a man who could bend realities with a flick of his wrist. I had watched, mesmerized, as he had taken command of the room. But there was something darker hidden beneath that polished exterior, a predator lurking in the shadows. My throat tightened. I had to say something, but my voice trembled like a fragile leaf in the storm. It all began with Sarah, my best friend. Warm-hearted and full of laughter, she shimmered brighter than the jewels around her neck. We'd been inseparable since childhood, navigating life's ups and downs together. That night, though, I felt a wrenching in my chest. I noticed Sarah slinking away, trapped in Caleb's captivating words. His deep voice curled around her like smoke, intoxicating yet toxic. I wanted to scream, to pull her back from the cliff's edge. But it was more than that. I could almost feel the electricity crackling in the air, a warning that something sinister was about to unfold. Sarah's eyes fluttered, a combination of awe and confusion, and it sent my heart racing. One moment, I was just an ordinary girl. The next I was a storm, ready to unleash my fury. Stop! The word escaped my lips, raw and desperate. The room fell silent. Every set of eyes turned to me, curiosity and shock dancing across their faces. My stomach twisted as I faced Caleb. His expression shifted, surprised, amused. The thrill of standing up to him surged through me, but so did the fear. I could see disdain written across his features like graffiti on a pristine wall. "Do you think you can dictate who I talk to?" he asked, the words dripping with condescension. My hands began to tremble, heat flooding my cheeks as the crowd held its breath, waiting for a show. I could almost hear the heartbeats in the silence. The tension wrapped tightly around us like a noose that I knew I was out of my league. I could feel the weight of their judgment slowly crushing me. But more than that, I could hear Sarah's voice above all the noise, begging me silently to protect her. Seeing her in danger ignited a fire in my chest, a flame I never knew was there. "You don't own her. She's more than a trophy for your wall," I shot back, my voice stronger than I felt. Cheers and gasps rushed through the crowd, a wave of shock and admiration. Caleb's eyes darkened, revealing a storm brewing beneath his polished surface. "You'll regret this," he whispered, but I didn't have time to dwell. I could hear my heart racing. The night hung in the balance, and the uncertainty of what would happen next loomed like an ominous shadow. And just like that, the moment shifted. The room exploded with whispers, gasps of disbelief mingling with the clink of champagne glasses. I saw Sarah's wide eyes, surprise etched deep within them. I felt untethered, caught between damaging my relationship over bravery and doing the right thing. But what would it cost me? The haze of uncertainty lingered thick in the air as silence enveloped us. I could feel the weight of a million unanswered questions pressing down like a heavy blanket. What had I just unleashed? And as Caleb's expression darkened, I wondered if I had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The silence that fell over the gala felt heavy, cloaked in uncertainty. The collective breath of the crowd hovered like a specter, waiting for something to break the tension. My heart raced, echoing in my ears, drowning out the world around me. I had expected some relief after my moment of bravery, a surge of triumph. But all I felt was dread, the kind that sinks deep into your bones and wraps itself around your heart. Caleb stood there, eyes locked onto mine, a complex mixture of anger and amusement warring on his face. He seemed to measure the weight of his next words like a predator who had just been cornered. For a fleeting moment, I thought I saw something more, a flicker of vulnerability before he masked it behind a veneer of his insatiable arrogance. Are you done playing the hero, or do you want to make a real fool of yourself? He taunted, his voice low and dangerous, slicing through the frigid air. I felt exposed, raw, like a wound laid bare, and yet that flicker of fire within me refused to extinguish. Leave her alone, Caleb. Sarah's voice trembled, yet there was a tangible strength in her plea that brought a surge of hope. The way she looked at me, eyes wide and shining with an emotion I couldn't quite read, added to my determination. This was about more than just might, was about her, our friendship, and the safety we had fought for all our lives. Caleb laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. You really think you can protect her from me? You're out of your depth. As the crowd began to murmur again, I stood taller. The lurking doubts at the back of my mind tightened their grip, but I pushed through the fear. Maybe I can't protect her from everything, but I won't let you toy with her like some puppet. She deserves better. A glimmer of something unspoken passed between Sarah and me. An understanding, a commitment to weather this storm together. In that moment, I realized I wasn't just standing up to Caleb. I was standing up for us. But my defiance seemed to only embolden him. Caleb stepped closer, piercing me with his gaze, the tension thickening like a coiled spring ready to snap. You're going to regret this, little girl. The world is bigger than you think, and I hold all the cards. Before I could respond, he turned abruptly, striding out of the room as if he had drawn the final curtain on a play. The murmurs escalated into chaotic whispers, questions darting back and forth, glances exchanged like soldiers silently passing information on the battlefield. I could feel the eyes of dozens trained on me, sensing my vulnerability, and a knot tightened in my stomach. Let's get out of here, Sarah whispered, tugging softly on my arm as if to transport me away from the chaos. But I was rooted to the spot, an overwhelming whirlwind of emotions crashing over me. I can't, Justice. We can, she insisted, her voice soft yet firm, encouraging me to step back. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see Caleb lurking, but the path before us was clear. The exit beckoned, whispering promises of solitude and safety. We slipped out into the cool evening air, the sudden quiet a balm to my frazzled nerves. The stars twinkled above, indifferent to the turmoil below. I took a shaky breath, wrapping my arms around myself. Did I do the right thing? I questioned, the vulnerability creeping back. And of course you did, Sarah replied, squeezing my hand tightly. You showed bravery when it mattered. We don't have to be afraid anymore. But when we reached the car, a simple sedan juxtaposed against the opulence we had just left, I couldn't shake the feeling of something malignant waiting just around the corner. Caleb would not be so quick to let this go. As Sarah got into the driver's seat, I noticed a dark figure approaching from the periphery of the parking lot, the shadows folding around the man in an imposing embrace. My heart quickened, and a feeling of dread washed over me as the figure stepped into the light. That it was Caleb, but he wasn't alone. Beside him stood a woman draped in an elegant black dress, her hair cascading like a waterfall of obsidian. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. As they drew nearer, the glint of malice in Caleb's eyes rivaled the silver jewelry adorning her. Thought you could escape me, did you? He said, a slow, predatory smile creeping onto his lips that sent a chill down my spine. The woman beside him looked at me with an uncanny intensity, as if she held secrets that could shatter the fragile walls I had built around myself. A rush of fear collided with my rising defiance. Before I could react, Caleb's next words tumbled out, chilling and precise. You have no idea what you've just set into motion. In that moment, I knew the battle I had unknowingly ignited had only just begun. The uncertainty twisted my insides, and deep down, the shadows whispered, it would end either in victory or ruin. And as Caleb stepped closer, the air thick with a silent challenge, I understood one thing. The storm was far from over, and the sacrifices we were about to face could change everything. The night air clung to my skin, heavy with the weight of Caleb's words. There was no escaping the malice that dripped from his lips, each syllable striking against my heart like a hammer against glass. I felt Sarah's hand squeeze mine as if anchoring me to reality, but my mind was racing, spiraling through the implications of his threat. "Let's get out of here," I managed, my voice trembling with urgency. But before I could urge Sarah to move, Caleb took another step closer, the shadowy woman beside him lingering in the periphery of my vision. "Wait," she said, her voice velvet smooth, undermined by an undertone of menace. "I think they deserve to know who they're dealing with." Caleb shot her a glance that was both affectionate and possessive. "Easy, Lena," he said, though the tenderness in his tone felt incongruous with the malice radiating from him. "You're right, they should know. It'll make their impending doom all the more delightful." With an instinctive pull, I positioned myself slightly in front of Sarah, the protective urge surging to the forefront. Who was this woman, and what horrible alliance had I stumbled into? There was a strange familiarity about her. A moment of recognition fluttered in my chest, but I couldn't grasp it tightly enough to find clarity. "Your mistake was thinking you could stand up to me without consequences," Caleb continued, unfazed by my instinctual defiance. "And you don't yet know the lengths I'm willing to go." Lena smiled, a ghost of something sinister ghosting her lips. "You're only just beginning to see the pieces on the board. But don't worry, it's going to be quite the game. As if the universe was testing my resolve, the familiar face of an old friend materialized in my mind. This was Jenna. Jenna, who had once been part of my closest circle before life had taken us down separate paths. Why was she with Caleb? A shot of bitterness coated my thoughts. Jenna had always admired wealth and influence, but this was disturbing. "Stay away from us," I said, my voice sharper than I intended, a flare of determination nudging aside the fear gnawing at my insides. Caleb's laughter echoed back like a cruel promise. "Stay away? Oh, my dear, you've secured your part in this show without realizing it. The audience always watches the protagonists." Sarah turned to me, worry etched into her features. "We need to go, now," she whispered, urgency bubbling beneath the surface. But Caleb took another step closer, the air between us thickening. "Unless you want the whole world to see just how weak you truly are, I recommend you think twice before trying to flee." The cruel weight of his twisted logic hung in the air, and my heart pounded in sync with the growing dread. What was at stake? My mind raced through a list of options and weighty thoughts, but behind them loomed one undeniable truth. I couldn't allow fear to dictate my choices. It had already taken too much from me. "Maybe he'll show you what it means to stand up to someone," I countered, surprising myself at the certainty that cracked through the flickering doubts. Caleb's expression shifted momentarily, a flash of interest igniting in the depths of his eyes. "Ah, I see. You've found your bravery. Bravo. But I've always found that courage without intellect can be quite dangerous." His smile deepened, my body tightened with instinctual wariness. "You're just a coward hiding behind your money," I shot back, and a buried part of me relished the fact that the fire sparking in my chest wasn't entirely extinguished. That heartbeat of affirmation. As I faced Caleb's malevolence, Lena stepped forward. "You should really think about your friend, too," she said, gaze drifting to Sarah with calculated consideration. "She might be the one who pays a far greater price for your antics. Don't you dare touch her." The swerve of panic surged through me, entangling so rapidly with fierce loyalty that it left the air thick and charged. Caleb chuckled, the sound sinuous and soft, yet it echoed with an undercurrent of threat. "Let's see if your resolve continues when the stakes are raised." Before I could retaliate, a car engine rumbled in the distancia, rumble that became louder, blaring headlights illuminating the darkened parking lot. In a swift pivot, Lena and Caleb turned as if awaiting something. My heart raced, aware that this twist of fate could be just a promise of chaos unfolding. And then, the car pulled into the lot, skidding to a stop just behind us. The window rolled down, revealing a familiar silhouette, one that sparked both joy and confusion. Everything okay? I saw the commotion. It was Marcus, my college friend turned ally, his concern palpable as he peered through the glass. He had been uncertain ever since I first mentioned Caleb, his protective instincts kicking in long before the tension had escalated. But even as he approached, the air crackled with veiled threats. "Leave now, Marcus," I shouted before I could reconsider, a twinge of desperation clawing at my insides. Caleb's laughter rumbled amidst the chaos, a harbinger of dark satisfaction. "Oh, what fun, some supportive friends creating a lovely scene. But I suspect this is only the beginning of your journey, brave girl." With those taunting words, I knew we had unwittingly stepped onto a treacherous path. The weight of Caleb's threat and the mysterious intentions behind Lena felt like dark clouds gathering, poised to unleash the storm. As Marcus joined us, worry etched in his brow, I realized the boiling conflict wasn't just mine anymore. In that moment, a thread of resolution tightened within me, interwoven with fear. We were all in this together, now whether we wanted to be or not. But the night was still young, and the escalating darkness felt like a prelude to something unfathomably dangerous. "Get ready," I whispered to Sarah and Marcus, my heart pounding with the knowledge that the lives we had built for ourselves, shaped by courage, would now be tested beyond measure. And in the silence that followed, the truth loomed heavy, casting long shadows before us. The battle was just beginning. The tension hung in the air, thick as fog, wrapping around us like a shroud. Caleb stood before us, arms crossed, his smirk a chilling contrast to Marcus' anxious expression. My heart raced, a pendulum swinging between fear and resolve. I felt Sarah's hand tighten around mine, grounding me as my mind spiraled through possibilities and worst-case scenarios. "Guys, we should really," Marcus began, but Caleb's dismissive wave cut him off. "Allow me to introduce myself," Caleb said coolly, stepping forward with a swagger that dripped with arrogance. "I'm the force that makes the world turn. I can make or break lives with a mere flick of my wrist. And tonight, it seems, you've crossed into my territory." "Enough of your theatrics," I replied, my voice trembling yet defiant. "This isn't a game to us. But that's where you're wrong," Lena interjected, her dark eyes glinting with amusement. "You're already players in this elaborate drama. The question is, how far are you willing to go to protect your little world?" With each passing moment, my simmering anger began to boil over, a fierce tempest of emotions swirling within me. Jenna's face loomed in my mind, the betrayal, the choices she had made. Was she the reason Caleb had his sights set on me? Could this really be what life had become, an entangled web spun by familiar faces and ruthless ambitions? "Whatever you think you have on us won't work," I shot back, my tone steadying with determination. "We've seen darkness before, and we'll face whatever you throw our way." "Spoken like a true hero," Caleb mused, leaning back as if savoring my words. "But heroes often fall. The best stories are laden with consequences." A sudden rustle broke through the air, pulling our attention to the edges of the parking lot. A lone figure emerged from the shadows. Damien, another friend from the past, stepped onto the scene with an unusual air of confidence. The sight of him stirred unfamiliar hope in my chest. "Everyone all right?" he asked, his eyes scanning the group, a protective instinct brimming forth. "Get away," I yelled again, the panic crashing through me like waves against a cliff. "This isn't a fight you can win." "Why is this happening?" Damien shouted back, confusion morphing into urgency. He had always been the level-headed one among us, yet now he seemed just as lost as the rest of us. "It's about power. Control," Caleb sneered, reveling in the chaos unfolding. "And darling, you're in over your head. Do you really think you can stand against someone who has countless people at his beck and call?" In that moment, a flicker of outrage shot through me. "You think you can dictate our lives? You are just a man scrambling to hold on to your money and your threats, but they don't scare me." "It's not the money that drives me," Caleb retorted, his voice dropping, dark and steady. "It's the thrill of the hunt. The way I can watch closely, learn my target, and then strike when they least expect it." Surging emotion propelled me forward. My instincts were screaming to protect my friends. The vulnerability of our bond twisted inside me, wrapping like barbed wire around my heart. "You want to bring fear into our lives? We will not cower. We're stronger together." Marcus' eyes widened, admiration flashing for a brief moment, while Damien nodded in solidarity. Their unwavering support kindled warmth within me, pushing back the chill of Caleb's malice. But Caleb only chuckled, a sound devoid of humor. "Strength in numbers? How quaint." He straightened, the threat in his posture magnifying. "Let's just say that the puppeteer always knows how to yank the strings of his marionettes." Rage simmered against the fear tightening its grip on my throat. I was unprepared for the dark realization washing over me. This wasn't just a threat directed at Might, was a threat against all I cared for. I had dragged them into my storm, and now I had to shield them from the worst of what was to come. Suddenly, calamity struck in a flash as Caleb reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a phone. My stomach twisted as he began typing furiously, a sinister glint in his eye. Let's see just how courageous you really are. Consider this a warning, he sneered. Stop, I shouted, instinctively stepping closer, a surge of desperation forcing words to leap from my lips. You don't have to do this, whatever it is you're planning. Just stop. The moment hung heavy and taut, a thin line strained between USA, dangerous balance teetering over an abyss. My heart pounded, each beat resonating through the charged silence. And then he spoke, his voice cold as steel. Well, see how many friends you can count on when the stakes become personal. There's no running from this, sweetheart. Your past is about to become your worst nightmare. The finality of his words ripped the ground from beneath me. Each breath became more strained, each heartbeat suffused with the weight of dread. What had I done by standing up to him? As the remnants of his laughter faded into the night, my entire world felt like it was spiraling out of control. The sound of crickets could barely pierce the silence that followed. Panic swirled within me, wrapping cold tendrils around my spine. But before I could fully process the implications, I felt a faint buzz in my pocket, a notification from my phone, insistent and unyielding. When I glanced down, my heart sank like a stone. It was a message from an unknown number. I know what you've done, and am not alone. Get ready. The blood drained from my face, the threads of my reality tangling in a web of fear and uncertainty. As I stood there, surrounded by my friends, I understood that the true challenge was just beginning, and there was no turning back now. The night felt different, a silent storm brewing beneath the facade of an ordinary world. My heart raced with uncertainty, the notification on my phone pulsing like a warning beacon, its ominous message swirling in my mind. It was hard to breathe as I looked up, meeting the gazes of my friends who awaited my reaction. Damien's brow furrowed in concern, Marcus wore a mask of shaky resolve, and Sarah's grip on my arm felt tighter, but somehow comforting. What did it say? Damien pushed, trying to maintain a sense of calm, but the tension crackled in the air around us. It's from a number I don't recognize, I stuttered, my throat constricting as I recounted the message. They say they know what I've done. They say I'm not alone. It feels like a threat. Great, just excellent, Caleb chimed in, reclining against his car with a smug grin. Looks like you've got friends in high places, sweetheart. Charming, really. I struggled to suppress the fury boiling inside me, the desire to strike out against his taunts. I lowered my eyes, willing my racing thoughts to settle. Flashes of Jenna pushed their way through. The darkness she had invited into my life, could this be tied to her? My heart thudded uncomfortably in my chest, realizing the lengths to which she had gone, and now I was paying the price. Maybe it's nothing, Marcus offered tentatively, trying to weave together his usual optimism with the gravity of the situation. I don't think it is, I said softly, a weight pressing on my heart. This feels personal. Like they see me, see who I am beneath the surface. Maybe we should go to the police, Sarah suggested, her voice trembling slightly. They can help us. They won't understand. I cut in, my voice sharper than intended. They wouldn't take us seriously. We have to deal with this ourselves. A shared silence fell, each of us grappling with the gravity of this realization. A burden of the unknown rested in our hands. With each passing moment, a profound sense of isolation crept in. Though we stood together, I felt an invisible chasm threatening to separate me from my friends, shadows lurking in the corners of my mind. What if it's someone connected to Caleb? Damien mused, a hint of anger igniting in his eyes. What if they're trying to intimidate us? Then we need to fight back, I said, my throat suddenly dry, my voice trembling with nervous energy. But we need a plan. We can't just wait for whatever's coming. Caleb watched with a smug expression, clearly enjoying our unease. Planning is cute, but remember you're all pawns in this game. It's just a matter of time before the truth comes to light. Shut up. Marcus snapped, surprising me with his anger. You're not the one in control here. Whatever you think you've got on us, we're not going to bow down. The defiance in Marcus' voice filled me with a flicker of hope. Perhaps Caleb's words had an effect we had not anticipated. A latent strength simmered in the surface, intertwined within our bond. Let's focus on what we can do, I said, drawing from that spark of courage. Together, we're stronger than any of their threats. If we stay united, we can face whatever is coming. We need to keep digging, find out who's behind this. The weight of Caleb's presence lingered. A sudden, unexpected kindness broke through the tension. The simple action of Damien stepping forward, placing a hand reassuringly on my shoulder. "We've got your back," he said, his voice steady. "No matter what it takes." The warmth of his gesture kindled a flicker of determination within me, reminding me of the hope that still existed. I inhaled deeply, locking my focus on the group we had built, each of us standing firm in the face of adversity. But just as a sense of unity began to settle, I felt my phone buzz again in my pocket, violent and alarming. Heart racing, I fished it out, eyes widening as I read the latest message. "TikTok, sweetheart. Time's running out. Your life and the lives of your friends are on the line. Find me before I find you. It's a game of life and death now." The color drained from my face, the darkness surrounding those words creeping into my thoughts as a chill flew down my spine. This was bigger than I had anticipated, and the stakes clawed at my resolve. Panic surged through me, tightening like vice grips around my heart. "What's wrong?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling, catching the fear reflected in my eyes. "They're serious," I whispered shakily. "They're playing a deadly game, and we're at the center of it." With uncertainty looming, I could feel despair clawing at the edges of hope. Even as my friends rallied around me, a sense of foreboding echoed deep within. The truth was out there, buried beneath a mountain of threats and shadows. And I couldn't shake the feeling that the next move would be Caleb's and it might tear us apart. As I looked at my friends, the fear mingling with bravery, the realization struck deep inside. I had to be the one to unravel this mystery, even if it meant risking everything. But as the darkness loomed closer, I wondered, was I really ready for the fight ahead, or would I be swallowed whole by the tempest I had invoked? The air crackled with a mix of unresolved tension and tangible dread, our breaths intertwining, heavy with unspoken fears of the unknown. I could see the flicker of doubt in Damien's eyes, while Marcus remained steadfast, gritting his teeth against an unseen storm of his own. Sarah's nearly imperceptible shiver broke my heart. The reality of what we were facing loomed like an ominous cloud, ready to pour its wrath at any moment. "Maybe we should split up," Damien suggested, and I could sense a protective instinct behind his words. "Scour the area, check for anything unusual. It'll decrease the chances of all of us getting targeted at once." I shook my head, the rattle of panic contorting my stomach. "No, that's what they want. We can't let them drive us apart. What if we used a public place? Somewhere we can watch each other's backs without being too obvious?" Marcus offered, his voice a mix of hesitance and hope. "A cafe, maybe? Crowded, but quiet enough for us." The camaraderie weaving us together felt fragile in this storm of uncertainty. I nodded, appreciating the thought of creating a buffer. No place seemed safe, but a shared ground softened the gravitational pull of isolation. "We can meet at the cafe near the park. It's always busy. Let's gather information about our mystery friend." Another layer of defense. Good idea. Sarah's eyes flickered to the window like a signal seeking external comfort, and I realized how much we were relying on the threadbare hope of safety in numbers. As we began walking in the direction of the cafe, my mind replayed the turmoil of Caleb's taunts, urging me to push through the suffocating weight on my chest. Every vibration of my phone was a reminder of the unseen threat lurking behind us, stalking our every move. I felt my fingers tighten around it, a makeshift talisman against the pulse of anxiety threatening to swallow me whole. Midway to our destination, the sun dipped behind the horizon, painting the sky in shades of crimson while casting long shadows that seemed to reach for us. We couldn't afford to be caught unguarded. The memory of the message, its chilling words echoing triumphantly in my mind, rattled my resolve. And then, just as we approached the cafe, an unexpected kindness broke through the suffocating haze. An elderly woman stood at the entrance, her frail fingers extended toward us, offering small handmade bracelets adorned with colorful beads. "For good luck, dear," she smiled, her weathered face crinkling with warmth. I hesitated, my initial instinct telling me to refuse, to continue advancing toward our uncertain mission. Yet something in her gaze drew me closer, resonating with a deep-seated need for connection amidst the chaos. I accepted a bracelet, its smooth surface warm with possibility, as bizarre as it felt to attach significance to something so seemingly trivial. "Thank you," I said earnestly, fastening it around my wrist, glancing at the others as they likewise accepted. Even Caleb's shadow seemed to wane a little in the woman's presence, an ethereal moment of light piercing through our grim reality. Inside the bustling cafe, we settled into a corner, the cacophony of laughter and plates clinking offering a semblance of normalcy. I felt cocooned within the warmth of their presence as we shared whispers and guarded thoughts, each of us relaxing into our roles observers, detectives, and friends set to navigate the turbulent waters ahead as time passed. Our conversations veered from the crippling messages to dreams and plans, moments of laughter surfacing amidst the apprehension. It was in those shared breaths that I felt a flicker of belonging, a reminder of what we fought to protect. Yet, just as a semblance of hope began to settle, my phone buzzed once again. Every heart in the vicinity seemed to still as I retrieved the new notification, a chill spreading through my body. Time's up. I'm closer than you think. You have 10 hours to find me before the truth shatters your little group. Decide wisely how you spend your time. The gravity of the message crashed over us, a wave of ice, replacing the warmth of our earlier laughter. Every eye turned toward mine, seeking answers I couldn't muster, voices falling into silence around my spiraling thoughts. Hope faltered against despair, a suffocating weight threatening to pull us under. 10 hours, I whispered, the realization sinking like a stone in my gut. We need to act, and fast. But even as I spoke, doubt rustled within. Who could we trust? And what sacrifices would we have to make to uncover the truth? Time pressed upon us, each ticking second a reminder that somewhere out there, shadows were watching, plotting to as we gathered our resolve. A new, unwelcoming thought flashed through my mind. Nagging fear of betrayal lurked just beneath the surface. What if one of us had more ties to the enigma than we dared to uncover? As our breaths synchronously quickened, a chilling realization set in. In the game we were now a part of, danger hadn't just disguised itself in threats, it could be hidden in plain sight. Woven into the fabric of our trusting circle. I stared into the group, searching for the same defiance I felt bubbling within. But suddenly, uncertainty rippled among us, and the familiar bond turned brittle. 10 hours, maybe less. Tick-tock echoed like a haunting melody in my mind. As we prepared to face the oncoming storm, my heart raced at the thought of hidden enemies among allies, and each passing moment solidified the chilling notion. In the game we were now trapped within, trust could shatter with a simple whisper. We stood in the cafe, the vibrant clinking of cups and the aroma of fresh coffee swirling around us. But my senses were dulled by the pressing urgency of the message. The tension between us brimmed, an electric current that threatened to snap as each exchanged glance spoke volumes of doubt and fear simmering beneath the surface. That I glanced at Damien, his brow furrowed with unease. We can't waste a second, he urged. We need a plan. A target, something concrete we can chase down before this silhouette shows its hand again. Let's think logically, Marcus added, his voice resonating with a hardened edge. That message, it's a psychological game, right? Dig into Caleb's past, the pattern of his confrontations. Is there a history, a person, or a conflict we might have overlooked? I just wish we knew why. Sarah's voice cracked slightly as she leaned forward, her eyes wide with desperation. He's always been untouchable, so why now? What's changed? I felt the heat of their scrutiny fall upon me, pressing me to provide the clarity I didn't have. Maybe he has a grudge, I murmured, half to myself, half to them, collecting the threads of thought. But my mind spiraled back to the bracelet on my wrist, the warmth of the elderly woman's kindness juxtaposed against the cold grip of Caleb's threats. What if he is targeting us because of something we've unknowingly unearthed? The implications hung in the air. What did we stumble across that had dragged Caleb from the shadows? It felt as if we were tangled in a web where our every fiber vibrated with a potential connection to the rising storm. Let's start with places he frequented, Damien offered, pulling out his phone. There's got to be something that links us to him. Any evidence? If he's been watching us, his past interactions might shed light on what his endgame really is. We rallied together, sharing snippets of research and memories. A flicker of hope flickered amidst our fear. The 10 hours loomed over us, but action ignited a fire I desperately needed. Each mention of a face, a place, a whispered rumor nudged us closer to comprehension. Perhaps wisdom lay hidden in these facets, buried like jewels beneath layers of deceit. Our conversation danced through avenues of speculation, laughter albeit nervous creeping in at intervals, when a shared memory of innocence broke through. Each recollection provided a momentary respite from the shadows closing in on us. But as the hours dwindled, a subtle shift occurred. I caught Marcus' gaze drifting to the window. My pulse quickened. He looked alarmed. "Do you guys feel it?" Marcus interrupted, glancing toward the entrance. "Something feels off." That we turned to look. My heart sank. A figure stood outside the cafe, their sharp silhouette betraying a calm authority that made the air around me go still. The person wore a dark coat, too sleek for the casual atmosphere, and their stance radiated intent. "What is it?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper, her body tensing and instinctively leaning closer to Damien. "I don't know." I shook my head, trying to process the unsettling presence. "Just keep calm. We don't want to attract attention." But my words felt feeble, rolling off my tongue like a soft promise in the storm surrounding us. I could sense the panic rippling through the group as we all remained acutely aware of the stranger's indifference against the backdrop of our heated urgency. Just then, my phone buzzed again, this time with a photo attached. My heart dropped as I opened it. It revealed a faded snapshot of me, captured from a distance, standing in front of my own home. A sudden rush of bile surged as dread crashed over me. "What the hell?" Damien's voice was a stark contrast to the pounding of my heart. Glancing back toward the figure, it dawned on me that the stranger's presence was not merely a distraction. They were, without question, a part of this intricate game. "Do you see that?" Marcus whispered, his finger jabbing at the window. Before I could comprehend the urgency, Damien stood abruptly, the tension crystallizing into decisive action. "We're not going to sit here and wait to become targets," he declared. "We need to get out now." Sarah grabbed my arm, her grip firm as we scrambled to our feet, anxiety palpable in the air around us. Fear coursed through me like an electric current, igniting my limbs as I followed them toward the back exit, trusting that instinct was our savior. But just as we creaked open the door, the consuming darkness of the alleyway loomed, echoing the doubts now swelling in my chest. We rushed out, but a truth hung in the air that tethered me, a burning question that flickered in the shadow behind my heart. What if we were already too late, ensnared by the hands of a puppet master we failed to identify? In the grand design of this harrowing game, the realization clawed at me. Every step forward brought us deeper into peril. As we barreled through the damp, confined alley, every ounce of clarity tangled with the encroaching doubt. Each footfall reverberated like a drum, signaling that our time was dwindling, and I couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps one of us had been playing a different game all along. The alley swallowed us whole as we stumbled forward, a cacophony of heavy breaths intermingling with the distant hum of city life fading behind us. The darkness felt oppressive, as if it were an entity itself, clutching at my throat in chilling constriction. Each heartbeat echoed my fear: were we truly escaping, or merely running toward an inevitable conclusion? "Do you think they saw us?" Sarah panted, her voice quivering as she glanced over her shoulder, eyes wide, searching for a threat lurking behind. "I don't know," Marcus replied, his voice tense. "But we can't slow down. We need to figure out where to go next." A flicker of distress twisted in my gut as I considered the implications of our discovery. Caleb's shadow had crept closer, grasping at us, and I felt the weight of choices made and paths chosen bearing down on my shoulders. Had I inadvertently brought this upon us? The burden of hindsight gnawed at me, whispering secrets I couldn't quite understand. We reached a cramped corner, bottles and debris littered beneath flickering streetlights that barely illuminated our urgency. Damien's expression grew more determined, and though I admired his resolve, the flicker of fear flickered behind his steel resolve. "There's a bus stop up ahead. We can take it to get away from here," he suggested, peering into the distance. "We just need to stay low and not attract attention." The hope in his words was fragile, but like a delicate ember, it ignited something within me. What if we talk to someone? Maybe someone who can help us understand what's happening? Each suggestion felt like grasping at straws, the thread between safety and deeper involvement fraying ever thinner. Still, I spoke it aloud. I couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps an ally was hiding in plain sight, our flames flickering as brightly as our fears. If we sought the past, perhaps we could illuminate the truth obscured in the present. "Anyone we trust?" Sarah interjected, skepticism lacing her tone. "Everyone connected to Caleb seems to be tangled in this mess." Marcus glanced at the sky, the clouds heavy with the weight of the unknown. What about Marcelo? He's been around the block, knows the ins and outs. If Caleb's been lurking in shadows, Marcelo might have seen signs. Marcelo? I asked, my brow furrowing. The bartender? Is he really someone we can rely on? Trustworthy enough? Marcus said. He senses things. He can help us connect dots without drawing too much attention. As we continued along the dimly lit alley, I felt small nuggets of hope bubble up. Marcelo was our link to a world that felt more familiar, yet perilous due to our circumstances. Each step we took toward that glimmer felt precarious, like balancing on a knife's edge. But just as we approached the end of the alley, a figure emerged from the shadows. The streetlights caught their face for a brief moment, revealing a sharp jawline and piercing eyes that felt both familiar and daunting. Caleb, I hissed, my throat tightening as realization crashed over us like a wave. In an instant, panic tried to consume my rationality, telling me to flee further, to lose all connection. Stay calm, Damien said, his voice steadying me against the turmoil. Just keep moving. We can outmaneuver him. We need to reach the bus stop. But Caleb's presence didn't waver as we hastily pushed past. You can't hide forever, he called out, his voice echoing, dripping with a menace that made my skin crawl. You're treading water in a game far deeper than you comprehend. That my heart raced as his words gnawed at my mind. What does he mean? I whispered, clenching Sarah's hand as we finally hit the street, the reassuring glare of headlights piercing through the suffocating darkness. He's trying to intimidate us, Marcus replied, but even his confidence appeared shaken. Yet as we approached the bus stop, an unexpected kindness bloomed in the form of an elderly woman seated there, her face weathered yet warm. She peered at us curiously, her eyes twinkling despite the threatening gloom surrounding us. You look like you're in need of a blessing, she said softly, pulling a small, golden locket from around her neck and holding it out to me. Take this. It'll keep you safe. Thank you, but I hesitated, caught between gratitude and the urgency of our escape. Trust me, dear. Sometimes faith can be the best armor. The warmth of her gesture cracked the ice of my fear, filling me with a fleeting sense of reprieve. As I took the locket, a surge of hope coursed through me. Was that safety I felt, or merely a momentary distraction from the chaos? Let's go, Damien urged with urgency, injecting his tone, and we shot the elderly woman a grateful glance as we turned toward the horizon of our uncertain future. The bus screeched to a halt as we clambered on, and I turned once more to the rear view, peering into the thickening night. My heart swelled as I clutched the locket tightly in my hand. But just as the bus pulled away, a shrill ring erupted from my phone. Trembling, I checked the screen, a fresh wave of dread crashing over me even as hope flickered tenuously within. It was a text from an unknown number. You should have never left the cafe. Caleb is only the beginning. My throat closed around a sob, fear morphing into something far darker. We were caught in a web, and the strands were tightening around us, each one a mystery threatening to pull us deeper into nightmarish oblivion. What did it mean? Who had sent it? With each beat of my heart, the storm loomed ever closer, and I knew now our fight was only just beginning. The bus rattled forward, the shadows of the city stretching away in our wake as the tension hung heavily in the air. I clutched the locket, heart racing as the weight of the message settled in my mind like a stone. Who was this new threat? And what did they want from us? Are you all right? Sarah asked softly, her gaze darting between me and the windows. Fear etched into her features that I forced a nod, but the truth felt tangled in my throat. I think we're in deeper than we thought. The words slipped out, carrying the heaviness of my concern. Whatever it is, we'll get through this together, Marcus said, his voice a steady anchor. But as I looked around the bus at the other passengers lost in their own worlds, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around us, a sense of foreboding washed over me. The bus lurched to a stop, and an unfamiliar unease trickled through me. Is this our stop? Damien asked, looking down at his phone. No, I replied, squinting at the darkening street. Just a few more blocks. That we were silent for a moment, the kind of quiet that cloaks an impending storm. I glanced back at the text, my thumb hovering over the screen, desperate to decipher the threat lurking beneath those words. What could it mean? And how closely was Caleb watching? As if to answer my unspoken fears, The bus driver announced a delay. "We'll be stopped a few minutes, folks. Break in the weather ahead," he said, oblivious to the sense of dread curling in my belly. "But we can't stay here," I whispered. "What if Caleb finds us?" "Let's think logically," Marcus urged, his brow creasing. "He doesn't know we took this bus. We can keep moving." Just then, the bus door swung open, and our fate swung with it. Two figures identical in their polished dark suits and cold demeanor stepped aboard, exuding authority like a fog. Their eyes swept the bus, and I could feel the energy shift, the atmosphere thickening with an unseen threat. "Looking for someone?" one of the men drawled, his voice smooth yet menacing. The warmth of hope crumbled away, replaced by a bone-deep chill that gripped me tighter than the dark. The other man, his piercing gaze locking onto me, showed no hint of remorse. "Think you can run forever? You made a choice, and choices have consequences." The passengers murmured nervously, glancing at one another, feeling the electric tension that coiled around us. I felt Sarah's fingers tighten around mine, her grip a lifeline anchoring me amid the rising tide of terror. Damien instinctively moved to shield us, but the men's laughter sliced through the bus like a blade. "Save your bravado. You're in over your head." My heart raced wildly. The message had been a warning. This was no coincidence. As I fought against the panic surging up my chest, a thought flickered in my mind. We needed to keep moving, not let them pin us down. "Get off the bus," I shouted suddenly, my voice louder than I intended, a spark igniting the air. "Let's go?" Chaos erupted as I scrambled from my seat, pulling Sarah and Damien with me. We surged toward the exit, but the smooth-suited figures stepped in our way, their intent clear. The air felt electric, charged with the possibility of confrontation, fear dripping like sweat between my clenched fingers as I scanned for an escape. We burst through the exit door as yelling erupted behind us, but the street felt alive under my feet, a new kind of energy surging. "This way," I hollered, leading us into the thrumming city streets. Our feet pounded against the pavement, the echo of our desperation ringing out into the night. I could hear the thud of pursuit. Caleb's reach was like darkness, looming and ever-present. "Where are we going?" Sarah gasped. "Anywhere but here," I replied, not entirely sure of my own words. The sidewalks blurred by as we darted into a labyrinth of alleys, the familiar disarray transforming into a chaotic rush of adrenaline. Just when I thought we could lose them, a loud shout echoed. We were far from free. "Stop them," commanded one of the dark figures. "We have what you're looking for." With each stride, I felt my muscles scream in defiance, yet despair began to seep in again as I glanced back to see the figures weaving through the crowd, shadows gliding like smoke. "That we need to plan something fast," Damien urged, desperation lacing his voice. "There?" My gaze landed on a veiled doorway, flickering lights hinting at a hidden space. Without hesitation, I pulled them inside, the heavy door shutting with a heavy thud behind us, the clamoring of the outside world muffled, leaving us in the dim light of a small bar. But the atmosphere was charged, alive with the whisper of secrets. My heart calmed slightly as I realized we were among others, a haphazard mix of people seeking solace from the chaos. We huddled at a corner table, our breaths ragged but hidden beneath the ambient buzz. A bartender stepped closer, his gaze piercing but somehow warm. "You look like you've seen the devil himself." "Yes," I breathed, the weight of the world pressing down on my shoulders. "That I may have a way to help," he said, leaning in closer. "But you have to tell me everything." As I opened my mouth to speak, the door slammed open behind us, the dark figures of our pursuers looming in the threshold. Panic seized me. We were trapped with nowhere left to run. And suddenly, at the very edge of the chaos, the bartender's expression shifted, a flicker of recognition in his eyes as he addressed the figures. "You shouldn't be here," he warned, his tone unwavering. My heart raced anew as the world spun on its axis. Who was this man? What secrets did he hold? And more importantly, did he hold the key to our survival or merely another layer of trouble? I felt my heart thumping painfully in my chest as I took in the scene before me. The shadows of our pursuers expanded ominously into the bar, and everything inside me screamed for escape. Fear coursed through my veins, yet a flicker of something else ignited in my core defiance. But as the bartender stood resolutely against our foes, I understood that this moment would be pivotal, Either a step toward salvation or a complete collapse. Let them go, the bartender demanded, his baritone voice echoing powerfully, commanding respect. They are not your pawns. Caleb's henchmen exchanged glances, calculating, their menacing presence palpable. The tension in the room tightened like a noose, their indifference threatening to steal the air from my lungs. But the bartender held his ground, the strength of his authority emanating from him fiercely. Your games with them end here, he continued, glancing at us with genuine concern and something akin to compassion. This is not the place for your threats. Stay out of this, old man, one of the men retorted, their smirks twisting into grotesque masks of arrogance. You've no idea who you're dealing with. But before I could grasp the full meaning of their words, the bartender leaned forward, lowering his voice, gauging our reactions closely. You three, he said sternly, you need to trust me. I can help that. I don't know if we can trust anyone anymore, I said, trembling as the shadows of doubt loomed heavy. The reality of our predicament clung to me, twisting my thoughts, urging me to be cautious. How could I possibly know if he was on our side? I understand your fear, he replied, the intensity of his gaze washing over us like a wave of calm amidst the turmoil. But right now, your only option is to stand together. There was an undeniable strength in his Aisa connection forged through hardship echoing within me. Our fates were entwined. I could sense it. Then what do we do? Damien asked, his determination unwavering. The fear of imminent danger stark on his face. We wait for them to make a move. The bartender answered firmly, folding his arms. When they come, we'll be ready. But how could we prepare for the unknown? Tension vibrated in the air as we stood, waiting, in a silence pregnant with fear and uncertainty. Every second passed like an eternity, and my grip on Sarah's hand tightened, each pulse a silent reminder of our bond. Finally, after what felt like hours, the figures continued to lurk at the entrance, scanning the bar for us. I could feel Caleb's ghost hovering just past the periphery, the invisible threads of his malice stretching toward us like an unfurling shadow. What do we do? Sarah whispered urgently, her eyes darting to the bartender. How do we get out of this? Just keep quiet. Wait, he commanded softly, and I was torn caught between the impulse to escape and the idea that we were safer standing our ground. The bartender turned toward the entrance, locking his gaze onto the men who had stepped across the threshold and were now assessing the room, an intelligence swimming calmly beneath his bravado, knowing the game they were playing. The air turned electrified, and just as we thought we might slip through without confrontation, one of the men caught sight of us. There they are, he shouted, and chaos ensued. The bartender surged forward, positioning himself between us and the attackers, arms spread witty a barrier against the oncoming storm. You'll have to go through me, he declared, voice strong, unwavering, echoing manipulation and authority that drew everyone's attention. Caleb's henchmen glared at him, their rage festering. That can be arranged, one sneered, rolling up his sleeves as the laughter of impending violence filled the air. Something primal within me screamed for survival, yet adrenaline surged stronger through my veins. We don't have to do this, my voice broke through, a fragile plea for reason amidst the chaos. Let us leave. You can have Caleb whatever way you want, just let us go. The clamor faded, and all eyes turned to me, the atmosphere quaking under the weight of uncertainty. I felt Caleb's presence creeping in again, a whisper like a dark promise brushing against my consciousness. Though, sweetheart, one of the men scoffed. You think you've won against him? It's adorable, really. But the bartender shot a warning glance, as if recognizing something only he could see. You don't understand. They're not pawns anymore. Thieves become players. And that was when everything changed. In one swift motion, the bartender reached behind the counter, revealing an array of items that twinkled in the dim light, a collection of tools, weapons that somehow shimmered with a promise of hope. My heart soared as he tossed a small weapon toward me, the makeshift weapon transforming my fear into courage. Now, he shouted as chaos erupted in the bar. Mark and Damien fell into formation beside me, our bond thrumming with an exhilaration fueled by survival instinct. United, we stepped forward, prepared to face whatever calamity awaited us. Caleb's men lunged at the bartender, and we tensed, readying ourselves as we lunged forward. In the swirl of bodies and confusion, I caught a glimpse of the bartender retaliating fiercely, his moves calculated, graceful as he darted to protect us. And then it happened. I couldn't believe what I saw. One of the men stumbled backward, a blurry flash of silver catching my eye. He fell to the ground, the sounds of chaos abruptly hollowing out, and I realized that we weren't just participants in this game of survival. We were its champions, fighting for a greater purpose forged in friendship, loyalty, and the unwavering spirit to resist. Stay together, I shouted, my voice breaking through the din, rallying my team like a battle cry. We surged forward, and for a moment, confusion reigned as we fought side by side. Each blow we landed felt electrifying. Faced with the reality of a fight for our lives, we were transformed into warriors, refusing to be silenced. But even as the tide twisted, as we pressed against them with renewed energy, a sudden revelation crashed over me. We had not only risen against our threats, we had built something more, a familial bond forged in the flames of this chaotic storm. Then, as quickly as it began, the scene dispersed. Our quiet victory enveloped us in warmth. The lingering fear momentarily quenched, but the uncertainty tugged at the edges of our minds. The bartender looked at us, eyes fierce but glimmering with a sort of pride and sorrow. They will come again. This isn't over. Why haven't you told us? I demanded, frustration intermingling with concern as I felt the familiar tendrils of anxiety weaving back into my chest. What does this all mean? It means more than you can fathom, he responded, and that flicker of recognition went through me. There are many facets to him, and until you understand Caleb's true nature, you will always be caught in a tempest unrelenting. That a chill settled over us as we processed the weight of the truth threading through this moment. Then teach us, I urged with resolute determination. Teach us everything. We won't run again. Well, stand our ground. The bartender studied us thoughtfully, realization dawning in the quiet moment. It's not just about standing your ground. It's knowing how to navigate the darkness that lurks beneath. With that, a transformative decision settled among USA crossroads of perseverance and courage born from our shared experience. As the dawn drew near, what began as a desperate flight evolved into a battle we could face together, a fight for truth and belonging. And then, as the tendrils of the night whispered a hushed farewell, I felt an overwhelming sense of belonging unfurl within me. We would face Caleb's darkness together, united against shadows, trusting the light that flickered within. The journey had transformed us, forged us through the fires of adversity. The final chapter of our story was only just beginning to unfold. Whatever it takes, I whispered, my heart steady. Together we'll find a way. As we slowly exited the bar, the sunlight began to rise, illuminating the path ahead, the shadows retreating. Hope enveloped our hearts, and with every step, I understood our bonds, forged in chaos, would outshine the darkness lurking just beyond. And as the final echoes of yesterday faded into the horizon, I took a breath filled with new resolve. Because we had come too far to turn back now, and together, we would rewrite our own destiny.